The American West of the 1880s was not merely a geographic frontier. It was a volatile state of mind, a jagged edge where the dying echoes of an ancient wilderness collided with the relentless, soot-stained machinery of the Gilded Age. It was a landscape of brutal extremes, a place of blinding sun and suffocating dust, where the promise of sudden wealth was often whispered in the same breath as the threat of an unmarked grave. Imagine a silence so profound it felt heavy, an immense, arid horizon where the earth seemed to stretch into eternity, unmarred by fences or stone. Here, the heat haze shimmered over the sagebrush like a desert mirage, mocking the thirsty traveler and shielding the secrets of a land that had never known the touch of a plow. Yet, beneath this mask of stillness, the West was trembling. A new era was being forged, not with parchment and ink, but with iron, sweat, and the violent combustion of coal. The myth of the lone rider was being slowly eclipsed by the collective roar of a nation that refused to be contained by distance. Can you feel it? The very ground beneath your boots begins to hum with a rhythmic metallic heartbeat. It is the sound of the future arriving on cold, heavy tracks of steel, cutting through the red rock and the silt like a surgical incision through the skin of the old world. The steam locomotive was the great iron god of the 1880s, a magnificent black-lunged beast that breathed fire and exhaled white, high-pressure ghosts into the mountain air. It was the heart of the American expansion, a churning engine of progress that turned months of agony into mere days of travel. This iron horse carried more than just cargo. It carried the crushing weight of manifest destiny. It bridged the yawning chasms of the canyons and defied the lethargy of the plains, bringing with it the luxuries of the East and the insatiable greed of the industrial machine. Inside the wooden coaches, a microcosm of a changing world sat shoulder to shoulder. The air was thick with the smell of wet wool, tobacco, and the nervous sweat of immigrants who had crossed oceans only to find themselves hurtling toward a horizon they could barely comprehend. Through the soot-streaked glass, the desert passed like a fever dream. The jagged silhouettes of mesas stood as silent witnesses, watching a new civilization rush past in a blur of smoke. As the train screeched into a remote station, the sound echoed against wooden buildings like a scream. These outposts were fragile wooden islands in an ocean of dust, where the arrival of the mail was the only pulse of life. Thick clouds of steam engulfed the platform, turning disembarking travelers into ghosts, entering a landscape that still belonged to the past. But here, life was no longer dictated by the sun, but by the precise ticking of a gold pocket watch. The station master was the keeper of this new time, tossing leather mailbags onto splintered floorboards, fragile threads of connection to a world left far behind. Welcome to the heart of the frontier, Dodge City, circa 1881, a city built of raw pine and desperate hope. The main street was a river of alkaline dust that coated the skin in gray film. To walk upon the raised wooden boardwalks was a struggle for dignity. The rhythmic jingle of spurs announced one's status long before a word was spoken. On the porches, men with eyes narrowed against the glare watched empires rise and fall in the dust. Behind the glass of the general stores, shelves packed with flour, candy, and repeating rifles offered a strange prosperity, a place where a man could buy survival and comfort in a single transaction. Nearby, the blacksmith shop served as the town's industrial lungs. Every strike of the hammer against the anvil was a declaration of intent, forging the iron that held this fragile town together against the relentless wind. Law in these places was thin. The sheriff stood as a solitary figure, his authority a necessary performance of strength. But true power was carried at the hip. The Colt Peacemaker was the great equalizer of the 1880s, a heavy piece of steel that turned a common man into a lethal force. Its weight in the holster was a constant reminder that justice was often a private matter, settled in the shadows. High above, telegraph wires hummed with the invisible energy of the modern world, turning vast distances into seconds. Points and dashes conveyed cattle prices and the movements of armies, the heartbeat of the information age pulsing through the wilderness. As the sun began its descent, the town underwent a visceral transformation. The bat-wing doors of the saloon swung open. Inside, it was a cathedral of vice and shadows, a place of dim yellow light and suffocating smoke. Here, the rules of daylight were suspended. Whiskey, raw and unrefined, was the only medicine for the ache of physical toil and crushing loneliness. At the poker tables, life was reduced to the turn of a card. Men gambled away futures in high-stakes rituals where a single mistake could lead to a violent end. The piano, often out of tune, played desperate melodies to drown out the tension that simmered beneath every conversation. In these dark corners, the future of the town was often decided not by votes, but by the quiet exchange of silver and the silent agreement of powerful men. To step out of the saloon was to be slapped by the chill of the desert night. Away from the main street, the shanty towns revealed the true cost of progress. Chinese laborers and miners lived in staggering hardship, their presence a vital but unacknowledged part of the nation's prosperity. It was a landscape of raw survival, stripped of romance. On a lonely hill stood Boot Hill Cemetery, a somber place of crooked wooden crosses where many had died with their boots on, cut short by a stray bullet or sudden fever. The tall, dry grass whistled through markers of those buried without a name, a stark reminder that the frontier was a jealous mistress who demanded the ultimate price. Yet even this wildness was ending. The introduction of barbed wire was a cold, metallic signal that the open range was closing. These fences were sutures on a divided land, separating cattle from the wild and settlers from the indigenous. From the high ridges, the Apache, Sioux, and Cheyenne watched their world systematically dismantled. The arrival of the telegraph and the fence marked the irreversible loss of ancestral sovereignty. Scattered across the prairie, lonely farmsteads stood as islands of domesticity. The labor was brutal, an existence defined by the desperate hope for rain. The storms of the 1880s were legendary, towering walls of thunder that made human ambition look like a child's toy. But as twilight deepened, the town took on a haunted beauty. The lamplighter ignited the oil lamps, a daily victory over the shadows. For a few hours, the town transformed into a collection of golden islands. Through glowing windows, one could catch glimpses of a quieter life. Families gathered around the Bible and the oil lamp, pillars of the pioneer home. Above it all, the Milky Way dominated the heavens, a brilliant silver river making the town look like a fragile spark in infinite darkness. A lone rider might depart into this night, his hoofbeats fading into a wilderness that was slowly being erased from the map. As we look back, the vibrant colors of the 1880s fade into sepia. We are left with cracked photographs of a world that once was. The Wild West was a brief, brilliant explosion of human energy that changed the course of a continent, a time of unimaginable courage and unforgivable cruelty. The frontier is gone, but its restless spirit still blows through the ruins and the canyons. Thank you for walking through the past with us. Subscribe to continue our journey into the reconstructions of history.